People like to say envy is ugly, but what they don't realize is that envy, when dressed in silence and a smile, can pass for friendship. My name's Rachel, I'm 24, and until last year, I lived in a shared apartment in Woodvale, Oregon, with my best friend Jenna. She was everything I wasn't, effortlessly magnetic, successful, married to a man who actually looked at her like she was magic. Meanwhile, I worked a dead-end admin job, had a haircut that never flattered me, and barely scraped by on tips from my weekend bar gig. I didn't just admire her. I wanted her life. Jenna didn't see the lines I drew between our lives. But I did. She'd glide into our apartment after brunch in some new silk blouse, dropping keys to her hybrid SUV on the counter like it was nothing. I'd sit there, watching her pick at a $28 salad, feeling my insides tighten. Sometimes she paid for me too. She'd laugh and say, "You'll get the next one," knowing damn well I couldn't. And honestly, I let her. I told myself it was fair. She had so much. What was a meal here, a dress there? If anything, I thought I was doing her a favor, balancing the scales. But the scales were never balanced. And the more generous she was, the more I resented her for it. It all changed the night of that winter gala. I'd saved for months to buy the emerald green dress I'd dreamed about for years. Not designer, but close enough to make me feel like someone worth looking at. When I wore it, I felt sharp, whole, maybe even desirable. But while Jenna was laughing and swirling her wine like we were at some scene from Gossip Girl, she stumbled and spilled her entire glass of Merlot down my front. Just like that. My favorite dress soaked in red. "Oh my God, Ratch!" she gasped, holding her hand over her mouth. "I'll buy you another. Honestly, I know a boutique in Portland. You'd look amazing in deep mauve." I didn't want mauve. I wanted my dress. My moment. But I smiled. I always smiled. A few days later, she handed me a beautifully wrapped box with a smoky purple designer gown. I nodded and said thank you while a part of me screamed. She didn't get it. She never would. She thought you could just replace things and people the moment they broke. A shattered glass? Buy new. A failed friendship? Move on. A cheating husband? Find another. And that's when something inside me clicked. Jenna's husband, Mark, had cheated on her once before, just a kiss, she claimed, brushing it off like it was a scratch on her perfect life. She forgave him. Moved on. And I wondered, could she do that again? Would she? I didn't want to hurt her, not really. I just wanted her to understand that some things can't be replaced. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be me. To want something so badly, and watch someone else live it effortlessly. So I decided to show her. I toned myself down. Softer clothes, calmer colors. I wore her husband's favorite indie band shirts and pretended it was coincidence. I asked him questions about his childhood like I actually cared, and weirdly, after a while, I kind of did. He didn't notice at first. Not really. But eventually he started pausing when I spoke. His glances lingered. When Jenna was out of town for a wellness retreat, he stayed up talking to me until 3 a.m., confiding things I knew he'd never told her. And I ate it up. Within 6 months, our friendship became a triangle, and I was the side with tension crackling beneath the surface. I didn't sleep with him. Not yet. But we were emotionally wrapped around each other in a way Jenna never saw coming. Or maybe she did. Because the next time she looked at me, her eyes weren't full of trust. They were scanning for cracks. And she had no idea how deep they already went. By the time summer rolled around, Mark was spending more time in our shared apartment than his own house. It started subtly. He'd drop Jenna off and forget something. A jacket. A charger. A reason to see me again. Then it became lunches when she was working late, then walks, then long talks over cheap wine and leftover Chinese on our balcony. Every time he said my name, I swore I heard it differently. Slower. Softer. Like it meant something. I wasn't stupid. I knew what I was doing. And yet, some part of me still believed it might be real. Like maybe, in the mess of everything, Mark had started seeing the real me, not Jenna's shadow, not the friend who needed hand-me-downs or borrowed dresses, but someone he could love. We never kissed. Not then. But it didn't matter. The emotional affair was real, and it was mine. A secret garden where Jenna didn't exist. And then it happened. He showed up one night while Jenna was at a conference in San Diego, rain-soaked and shaking, like a scene from a bad romantic drama. Said he couldn't stop thinking about me. That everything with Jenna had become routine. That I listened better. Understood him better. I stood there, barefoot in the kitchen, holding his soaked coat, heart pounding like it was trying to escape. "I think I'm falling for you, Rachel," he whispered. And I believed him. We slept together that night. It wasn't like I imagined, no cinematic music, or candles or swirling passion. It was quiet, almost hesitant. But after, he wrapped himself around me like I was home. And for the first time in my life, I felt like the main character. When Jenna returned, nothing seemed off. She kissed his cheek, threw her suitcase on the floor, and started rambling about some oceanfront restaurant with $10 mocktails. I watched her talk with the strange calm of someone holding a loaded secret. I should have felt guilty. But I didn't. I felt powerful. That power didn't last long. Because just when I thought I had everything I wanted, the ground shifted beneath me. 3 weeks after the night Mark and I crossed the line, I saw him having coffee with my coworker Sabrina. They were laughing. Leaning in. His hand brushed hers. I froze, watching from across the street, the same street where he used to meet me for quiet lunches. At first, I told myself it meant nothing. That I was just paranoid. But then I remembered something. Jenna had caught him once before, with someone else, just like this. He had a pattern. And I was never special. I was just next. I spiraled. That night I texted him. No response. I called, straight to voicemail. By morning, I felt like my skin didn't fit. Every moment I'd shared with him began to crack and peel, revealing the same rot Jenna must have felt the first time he cheated. He'd lied to her. He'd lied to me. And I'd let him in so far, I didn't know where he ended and I began. Then came the moment I'll never forget. Jenna knocked on my door holding a manila envelope. Her expression was unreadable. But her eyes, God, her eyes were hollow. Like she'd seen everything and felt nothing. "I know," she said, voice flat. "I've known." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. "I just wanted to see how long it would take you to say something." Inside the envelope was a printed screenshot, messages. Late-night texts. A few too many heart emojis. One photo I'd sent of my feet curled beneath his blanket. Nothing graphic. But enough. She didn't slap me. She didn't cry. Instead, she handed me a typed letter, notice of lease termination. "You have 30 days, she said. And then she walked away. Not a single tear. Not a single curse. Just silence. It was the scariest sound I'd ever heard. The silence Jenna left behind rang louder than any screaming match ever could. 30 days. That's what the paper said. Not, "We need to talk." Not, "How could you?" Just 30 cold days to disappear from the apartment I'd called home for 3 years. An apartment she technically owned, courtesy of her family's real estate firm. I begged her not to go through with it. I even offered rent in advance. She didn't respond. She didn't even block me, just left my text on read, like she wanted me to feel every unanswered word bounce back and echo. "Mark?" He vanished. Radio silence. After everything, the whispered promises, the secrets, the nights that felt like confessions, he ghosted me like a bar hookup. I heard through a mutual friend that he was working things out with Jenna. Classic. The truth clawed its way into my chest. I was a side quest in someone else's story. I cried twice. Then I got furious. I tried applying for other places, but my credit was garbage and my job wasn't enough to cover deposits on such short notice. I didn't even realize how many of my luxuries, clothes, dinners, nights out, had been gifts from Jenna. I'd built my entire identity out of borrowed sparkle. And now I was dull. Alone. Disposable. Then came the final gut punch. A week before move out, I came home to find two strangers touring the place. One of them, a young woman in a pastel blazer, turned to me, bright and chipper. "Oh, hi. You must be the tenant. We're with Whitmore Properties. Ms. Whitmore wanted us to show the unit to a new short-term lessee." Whitmore. Jenna's last name. She hadn't just kicked me out. She bought the entire building. Quietly. Discreetly. Just to make sure I had no place left near her world. The lease? A technicality. The purchase? A statement. She wasn't reclaiming her life. She was erasing me from it. I stood there, watching them measure my living room with laser tools, while the pastel woman casually asked, "You're moving soon, right? End of the month?" I nodded. Smile frozen. Heart in pieces. Later that night, I sat in the center of my now half-empty apartment, surrounded by trash bags and memories, and realized I'd lost. Not just the apartment. Not just Mark. I'd lost her. Jenna had been my mirror, sharper, shinier, more composed, but still a reflection. I hated her because I loved her. Because I wanted her life. And when I couldn't have it, I destroyed it. Except I didn't. She rebuilt. And I was the one staring at a future I didn't recognize. But just when I thought I'd hit bottom, something else surfaced, something unexpected, and far more painful than I was ready for. Mark didn't stay faithful to Jen either. Because 2 weeks after I moved out, my coworker Sabrina approached me in the staff kitchen with wide eyes and a guilty whisper. "I think we need to talk about Mark." Sabrina didn't owe me anything. We were just coworkers, cordial at best. But the look in her eyes that day in the break room wasn't gossip. It was pity. The kind that punches you in the gut because it's the same look you've given to other women. "I didn't know you two were involved," she said slowly, fingers curled around her travel mug. "Mark and we've been seeing each other for a few weeks now. I thought you knew he and Jenna were done." My body went cold. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, blinking like I'd forgotten how time worked. Mark had ghosted me, yes. But I had believed, stupidly, that it was about guilt, shame, maybe some twisted idea of trying to fix his marriage. Not this. Not another woman. "You okay?" Sabrina asked, voice small. I nodded too quickly. I left the kitchen before the tears came. That night I sat in my car, staring at the cracked vinyl of my steering wheel, trying to piece together how I had ended up here. Homeless. Broke. Betrayed. And somehow, still not the villain of the story. Not really. Mark had used me. Jenna had discarded me. And now Sabrina, who had unknowingly stepped into the same trap I had, was about to become the next name on the list of casualties. I was no longer just jealous of Jenna. I was beginning to understand her. But the irony didn't stop there. 3 days later, I bumped into Jenna at a local market. She looked different. Calm. Like someone who had made peace with war. She saw me. I saw her. Neither of us flinched. Then she said something that hit me harder than any insult ever could. "You always thought I didn't notice what you were doing. But I did. I just loved you anyway. That was my mistake." Then she walked past me, pushing a cart full of greens and flowers and almond milk like it was any ordinary Tuesday. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those words. I loved you anyway. What kind of person betrays someone who loved them? I replayed everything, every dinner Jenna paid for, every night she'd listen to me cry over some nobody guy, every time she picked me up drunk and wordless from a party. She'd held me while I vomited on my birthday. She let me borrow her grandmother's necklace for a date. She even gave me her coat one winter when I couldn't afford a new one. And I repaid her with poison. Dressed up like charm. But I wasn't done hurting. Because Mark? He texted me the next morning like nothing had happened. Like I didn't know. "Miss your voice. Can we talk? I stared at that message for a full minute. Then I opened my photos and scrolled back to the night we'd first slept together. I had taken a picture of his hand on mine, foolish, artsy, intimate. I sent it to him. You miss this hand? Guess who I ran into today? Sabrina says hi. Delivered. Read. No reply. 2 hours later, Sabrina messaged me. He just blocked me. My breath caught in my throat. I felt the tiniest sliver of satisfaction. Not justice. Not revenge. Just equal footing for once. But it didn't last. Because a week later, I got a call from my manager. I'm sorry to do this over the phone, Rachel. There've been complaints, personal matters bleeding into workplace dynamics. It's become a distraction. I was being asked to take a leave of absence. Unofficial suspension. HR speak for, you're too much of a mess to keep around. And that's when I realized I hadn't just destroyed my friendship. I had set fire to my entire life. I spent the next few weeks in a kind of suspended haze. No job. No home. No calls. Just the buzzing silence of consequences swarming me like flies. I couch-surfed at a former classmate's studio, one room with a futon that smelled like ramen and old ambition. My savings dried up faster than I thought, mostly because I was too proud to admit I had no backup plan. Jenna had been my backup plan, even when I didn't know it. And Mark? Disappeared completely. The guy who once whispered I think I'm falling for you now couldn't even be bothered to ghost properly. Then, one morning, a manila envelope appeared at the front desk of the building where I was crashing. My name written in delicate cursive. No return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper. To Rachel. Some things aren't replaceable. But some lessons are worth the price. J.W. Taped to the bottom was a check for $3,000 and a flyer. Group therapy for complicated grief and self-sabotage. My breath caught. She didn't even want an apology. She wanted me to look at myself. To reckon with the mess I made, not with her, not with Mark, but with myself. I didn't cash the check. But I went to the group. And there, I listened to strangers talk about loss, betrayal, self-hate, and the bitter hunger of wanting something you don't think you deserve. I finally spoke up during the third session. I didn't name names. Just said, I ruined the only friendship I ever had trying to live someone else's life. And now I don't even know who I am outside of wanting what I couldn't have. An older woman next to me nodded slowly and said, Then maybe now's the first time you're truly becoming yourself. It didn't hit me all at once. But it hit. 6 months later, I had a part-time job again, less money, more time to breathe. I rented a one-bedroom in the outskirts of town, plain and quiet, but mine. I started writing again, journal entries at first, then pieces for an online zine. I didn't reach out to Jenna. Not because I didn't want to. But because I finally understood that wanting to fix something doesn't mean you should. Then came the final twist, 1 year to the day since I left the apartment. I got a wedding invitation. Jenna was getting married. Not to Mark. To someone else. Someone new. Someone I'd never met. The card was cream, embossed, elegant. Her name was listed first. Her signature scent, lavender and mint, lingered on the envelope like she was whispering through the paper. At the bottom, handwritten. No hard feelings. Just hard lessons. Jenna. I didn't go. But I smiled for the first time in a long time. Because for once, I didn't need to be part of her story. I was finally writing my own.